1,000 people in the United States died last year from overdoses. And now high schools in New Jersey will soon be required to carry life-saving antidotes like Narcan under a law Governor Phil Murphy recently signed.
It will allow school nurses or other trained employees to administer the antidotes to anybody on school grounds. And joining us now to explain more about Narcan is Peter Grayson. He's a licensed chemical dependency professional from the Recovery Spot in Gramercy Park right here in New York. Good morning, Peter. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So I think we need to know a little bit more about Narcan, you know, how to administer it and what some of the legalities are there. Can you kind of explain what this is? This is a spray.
Certainly. I mean, first and foremost, the legalities, there really aren't many, and
Yeah.
that's something people need to know. I mean, you are indemnified by giving it. There's Good Samaritan laws and so forth. A lot of people sometimes are worried about administering it because they're worried what might happen. Everybody needs to know there should be no worry in giving it. That being said, it's available in 47 states at pharmacies without a prescription.
So you don't need a prescription. It's available in 47 states, and you can have it right here in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So in our tri-state area, it is available, you're saying?
Absolutely.
So show everybody the nasal spray, because, you know.
This is the nasal spray. It's as simple as that. You
Okay.
push the button.
Hold it to the
and
camera
go.
right there.
Push
Yep.
to the button and give it a go. And that's it. It couldn't be simpler now.
Can I ask you a question? Because I think a lot of people are saying, all right, we know that we are in a crisis mode when it comes to opioid addiction in the United States. I mean, it is crippling our neighborhood,
Absolutely.
Our streets, our kids. But a lot of people are saying, is this a safety net for users?
Right.
I mean, to know that there is an antidote that can then reverse the situation of possible near death. Is this an antidote?
Absolutely not.
Okay, tell me
And
why.
I'm sorry to cut you off with it, but it really is almost like keeping our head in the sand nowadays to think that it's an antidote. It shouldn't be exposed to children and things like that. We really believe it should be in schools. It should be, you know, you should learn how to administer Narcan just like you learn how to perform CPR. The statistics are almost the same if you think about the possibility of having to do either of those. So no, you're really not enabling or giving anybody a license to, you're potentially saving lives. In addition to that, it's not the user who's going to do it. They're ODing. They're out of it. It's somebody who's going to be with them. It's a family member. And for them to have it is, like we said, very easily, very accessible, and they really should.
And the key to have it is also to get them to treatment, right? It's to
Absolutely.
save a life and get them to treatment, and that's why proponents are saying this is a necessary thing that should be in every house. A lot of people are saying, in every house, are you overreaching with this?
No, and I think, you know, to the larger degree, it opens up the discussion of stigmatization and things like that, and we have to have a more open discussion about this. Like you said, it's an epidemic. It's a medical problem.
Yeah, there are 2.1 million Americans are believed to regularly abuse opioids.
That's
Untold millions more who might actually just use opioids for what they're intended to.
And those numbers are probably underestimated because we're dealing with who's reporting it. 200 people a day are dying. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's a really disturbing number, and there's a lot that can be done, especially when it's treated as a medical disorder it is.
I think Narcan is a tool in the toolbox.
Exactly.
Is that how you want us to look at it?
Yes, and back to, you know, the medical component and treatment and education and things like that, they are all critical, and integrating all of those aspects into this.
What about education? You know what I mean? Because we've heard about opioid addiction now, and we've seen how it's crippled so many communities, Long Island, Staten Island, you know, all across the country. I mean, there are pipelines now for this, and there are plenty of users. Now you even see users all over the city as well. You know, it's something that's at your doorstep.
Absolutely.
So my curiosity is that where do we go from here? You know what I mean? Where's the education for kids, young kids, so they're not exposed to it? I remember this is your brain on drugs. Like, where is all of this education that should be happening and should be central part of a component to Narcan being a tool in the toolbox for parents and teachers and educators moving forward, so there is a clear-cut solution?
That's the million-dollar question. Where is
Yeah.
the education? Where is the wider discussion? And it's not there, you know, and that goes back to the stigmatization and thinking about drug abuse.
But do you remember crack back in the 80s? I mean, remember the stigmatization of that, and remember how now 2018 we've been making inroads on that for a long time.
We have been, and if we look at the stance in the 80s, you know, things were more punitive and they were more kind of propaganda based. Now we do know a lot more. Now we do have a lot more research at hand. There's a lot stronger of a medical component involved in treatment. So there's a lot more objective information. So we really can be educating people better. And it's really that frank discussion and education, really from a young age, that is going to make the difference. Because unfortunately, you're never going to stop the exposure.
Right.
But it's how you can enable somebody to respond to the exposure. What tools can you give them? What tools can you give the families? The community support and so forth. So addressing it on a larger scale, I think, is what's going to have the biggest impact.
What responsibility do you think doctors should have, the people who are in the forefront of this epidemic? What kind of responsibility should they have in administering and prescribing these opioids?
Well, first and foremost, you know, there's a juxtaposition between the fact there's an epidemic, we're calling it a medical crisis, and there just aren't enough doctors in this field. I mean, the Recovery Spot's really one of the only programs that was founded by physicians and is run by physicians. We believe in taking a very strong medical approach coupled with a therapeutic component, but I think medicine in general has to come more into this picture. Doctors are going to be leading the charge in the solution.
They're part of the solution, we're part of the solution, and we have to take the stigmatization away from this, because there's the only way that we're going to be able to wrap our hands around our community and bring it back to life, and that's what we really have to do. Thank you for that. It's an interesting topic, lots of controversy around it, but I guess it is a tool to put in your toolbox, and New Jersey is one of those states that's allowing that to happen in classrooms, and I'm sure we'll be discussing it more and more.
I hope so.
Peter Grayson, we thank you so much for doing that this morning.
Thanks for having me.